Things that fearful avoidants do to torture themselves, part 2. And of course, they do these things subconsciously. If you haven't seen part 1, go back and watch it. It will fill you in on a lot of things. So I'm a former fearful avoidant myself who really leaned anxious, but I could really pull out the avoidant side as well. So no judgment here. These are things that I've personally experienced. These are things that I typically see when I work with fearful avoidant clients. And they're things that are very painful. So when I look back at the different behaviors and the ways that I used to feel and the things that I used to express and how I would show up for my partner, I look at those things and I have full compassion for myself, because you don't know what you don't know until you know it, until you learn better tools and techniques and ways to show up. But I also very much regret the way that I used to behave and have a lot of remorse for some of my actions and the way that I showed up. So if you find that this is you, have compassion for yourself, but definitely look deep and recognize that these things are going on for you. So picking up where we left off, one of the other things that a fearful avoidant will do that tortures themselves is they will force their opinions onto others. They can be very, very abrasive and very sort of aggressive with what they believe. Let me give you an example. Let's say that I'm a fearful avoidant and I am a vegetarian. I'm not a vegetarian, but let's just say that I was, and I believe very strongly that people should be vegetarians because I'm a vegetarian and I don't have any space for any other person's beliefs or how they live their life. People that are in my household, usually my partner. So then I try to force my partner to be a vegetarian, but he doesn't buy into that. However, because I don't create a safe space or room for him to have a different experience or beliefs or opinions, I sort of make him feel bullied that he has to also be a vegetarian. And so he goes and sneaks meat behind my back because, he doesn't buy into that, but he also is not able to speak his truth to me because I get highly reactive and sort of force my beliefs on him. And so he goes and he eats meat behind my back, and I find out, and then I feel, because I'm a fearful avoidant, betrayed and lied to and upset. And so then I go into attack mode and fight response. So you can see how a fearful avoidant can be extremely pushy with their beliefs, their opinions, their values, and push them onto other people. And then whenever the person doesn't buy into them, but they don't have a choice to openly, there's two things that they can do. They can either fight back, and if they're an avoidant, they're not going to probably do that and stay in that fight, or they can withdraw and let you think you've won the argument and that you're going to do things their way, which is typically the path that an avoidant is going to take. And so they're going to do things and be dishonest, not show up authentically, not show up truthfully with full transparency, and sometimes outright lie. A lot of avoidants will lie because they don't have a safe space to be their true selves, particularly with a fearful avoidant. So then I catch them in a lie, and guess what? My betrayal wound is hit. I go into fight or flight, and then I feel betrayed, and I get all up in my feelings. So that's one of the ways that they would torture themselves. They will not give people the place to be themselves, to have their own opinions, beliefs. They see everything black and white, and then they will inadvertently end up being betrayed because they find out later that that person, their actions are showing that they did not buy in to what the fearful avoidant was trying to get them to buy into, but they never gave them space to not buy in. Another way the fearful avoidant will torture themselves is they can be perfectionists. They can very much sort of go into that people-pleasing side, particularly if they are leaning to the anxious. And so they will be a perfectionist. They will take all this stuff on and then sort of be a martyr. They'll take it on, but then they'll get resentful that they're doing all the things and that nobody is helping them. However, because they're a perfectionist, if anybody tries to step in to help them, it's not done their way. It's not done correctly. And so they get very critical of their person or people who are trying to help them. And so they give up and they quit. And then that person just feels like, oh, nobody hears me. Nobody cares about my needs. I'm going unheard. Nobody appreciates me. When in reality, you haven't made it a safe place for them to step in and help you because they're not meeting your standards of perfectionism. So that's one of the ways that they will torture themselves and the other people. They will carry way more than they were ever intended to carry because they will not be flexible, and they won't necessarily be, they can just be so rigid that they're not flexible or allow people to do it their way. They also carry so much resentment and bitterness. And this is one of the ways that the fearful avoidant really, really tortures themselves and keeps themselves super dysregulated. Because of their betrayal wound, they hold on to their pain and they use it sort of as a way to keep people at arm's length. If they remember all the bad things that have happened in the past, the way that people have hurt them, the way that their partner has betrayed them, they believe subconsciously that they can keep themselves safe. If they hold tight to all of that, then they won't be hurt again. So they really struggle with forgiveness. And if you're a Christian FA, this is a command for you, and this is one of the ways that you're keeping yourself dysregulated and keeping yourself in strongholds. But they really struggle with forgiveness because they subconsciously believe that if they forgive, then somehow the partner's going to think it's okay to do things to hurt them, disappoint them, and betray them again. Forgiveness never equals acceptance of something. That's not what that means. That's a misperception. You can have a conversation with someone and tell them you're let down. You can put boundaries into place. That does not mean that you just accept whatever they give to you. But fearful avoidants really very much buy into this, that if they forgive, their partner is going to just keep hurting them over and over again. Again, they assign malicious intent to their partner. They assume that their partner did what they did to intentionally hurt them, which is usually not the case. Most people hurt people because they are going from their own wounds, their own pain, or they're trying to protect themselves and stay safe themselves. So there's usually not malicious intent. But they will assume that, and then they will assume if they forgive, the person will intentionally maliciously hurt them again. And so they struggle with forgiveness. And that is a way that you just keep yourself in chains and you keep yourself tortured. Another thing they do to torture themselves, they go to worst case scenario and they catastrophize. So they sort of always go to the worst case scenario. Let's say that my partner comes home late. Instead of me thinking that, they just forgot to call, or their phone is dead, or they got busy at work, or a meeting ran over that they weren't able to call because it was a Zoom call, or they were in a physical meeting. A fearful avoidant will very much automatically go to worst case scenario. They don't care about me. They don't love me. They're out with their friends. They're out at the bar. They're doing something shady. They jump to worst case scenario without necessarily ever having any evidence to justify that. So it's different if you have evidence to justify that and then you've experienced a lack of safety. And so that's smart, right? Fearful avoidants just always tend to assume that of their partner, even if their partner has never given them a reason to believe such things. So they very much keep themselves dysregulated by going to worst case scenario. And one of the ways that I see that play out a lot of times with my fearful avoidant clients is they will actually be super suspicious of a partner who is really doing things to value and honor them. They will not trust it. They'll think there's an ulterior motive, or that they're up to something, so they're being nicer. And a lot of times it's that they're actually doing their work and they're finally on the right path, but they're just looking for them to be doing something wrong, and that's why. So they always assign this malicious intent, and they very much go to the worst case scenario, that the person is acting good or they're showing up better because something's wrong with them or something's bad or something's going on. And it can be so simple as your partner comes home and they're having a bad day, so they're a little bit short and snappy, and you automatically make it about you, and the fearful avoidant automatically assumes, oh, it's because there's something going on, that they're mad at me, or it has to do with me, or they're distancing themselves because there's something suspicious going on, when in reality it may just be that they're having a bad day and they just need a moment. So going to that worst case scenario really keeps them dysregulated and puts this into this place of thinking things are going on when they're not. They're not very good at having clear, direct communication, asking the person what's going on, talking about their fears, and then taking the person for their word when they express what's going on. Lastly, they have very unrealistic expectations around understanding that keep them tortured. The fearful avoidant core need is to be deeply seen, heard, and understood. But here's the thing. People can do the best they can to understand you. That's empathy, like trying to see things from your perspective, trying to understand your inner world, trying to get to know what's going on for you and meet you in your pain. That's amazing, and that's what a fearful avoidant needs. But when people do that and they don't understand exactly what the fearful avoidant is going through, then they can tend to get highly reactive and get upset and stay really deep in their feelings and sort of torture themselves in that place. The fearful avoidant has to understand that the best you can get from somebody is someone attempting to understand your perspective and your inner world. They are never going to understand you perfectly or be neck and neck with you in understanding, because everybody has different belief systems, different self-worth, different trauma, different backgrounds, different childhoods. No one is ever going to have your exact experience. It is absolutely unrealistic to think that every single person is going to understand you and have the same exact experience that you do. Fearful avoidants get so stuck in trying to make people understand them and their experience that they forget to step back and offer the same thing to others and see where they're coming from, their inexperience, and what's going on for them. And so when people don't understand them perfectly, they really, really get very dysregulated and feel very betrayed that people don't understand them or see things from their perspective. And they will get stuck repeating something over and over and over again, trying to sort of pound into people, see it my way, get my perspective, like feel where I'm coming from. That's a defense mechanism because they feel safe if they feel deeply understood. And so there you go. Those are all the different ways that the fearful avoidant can torture themselves. You can see how unbelievably painful it can be if somebody does not do their work to heal and earn secure attachment if they are a fearful avoidant. And you can see how it tortures the partner too.